Good morning, everyone, and welcome to episode 7 of Proof of Delivery. This is our July 10th, 2025 episode. I'm Ken Adamo, joined by the illustrious Kary Jablonski. Good morning, Kary.
Good morning, Ken. Sorry we're a couple minutes late here. Very tech-forward discussion coming today, but a couple of technical difficulties kept us behind, but nothing to worry about. We're here.
Can't be a tech company without technical difficulties. That's what I always say.
That is the truth.
That is the truth. So it's been a busy couple of weeks out there, huh? I mean, a lot happening in the wide world of freight, I would say.
Yeah, I woke up to a message from you this morning about some changes likely to come, or perhaps have already come at the DOT, and not terribly surprising, I suppose, given what we've seen in that leadership role for the last couple of years. But what are your thoughts happening there?
I guess it's still unknown if Duffy is going to try to run both departments on an interim basis or shift most of his focus over to NASA. But yeah, the news last night coming from social media was that Secretary Duffy was going to be interim head of NASA as well. So I don't know. I mean, I guess in theory, rockets are a form of transportation, but I don't also understand the tie from him and his experience to literal rocket science. So I don't. Yeah, it's not something that I claim to understand, but I also don't have a strong opinion yet on what's worse, if he's moving on from DOT or splitting his time from a department that is in dire need of attention.
Yep. Well, stay tuned, certainly. Did you have any thoughts on his pro trucker package?
I think the parking piece is good. I think the speed limiter piece is probably net good for the industry. I think the English language proficiency thing is a massive waste of time. We can talk a little bit in a few minutes about some of the early data coming in on that, but it's I mean, I think anything for truckers in general is good. I wish the government agencies would take a little bit more time to understand some of the real problems plaguing the industry, to put focus. But parking is one of them. So I think it's 275 million or roundabouts for truck parking. I think that's a really good piece of that will benefit truckers for sure.
Yeah, definitely. What else is going on?
4th of July, right? I think that was very lackluster from a freight market perspective, unfortunately. And it was beautiful in a personal perspective. The weather here was gorgeous. I don't know about Chicago, but you said you were on the Mississippi River, though. You weren't even home.
Yeah, I was out in Galena, Illinois. Beautiful little town. Highly recommend for anyone on a Midwest road trip. We also hit the Field of Dreams field, so you can actually go to the place where it was filmed in Iowa, which is pretty cool.
Nice. That's awesome. Yeah, it was awesome here, too. We had some cookouts, beautiful weather, fireworks. It was great. Freight, not so much. I think probably one of the more lackluster seasonal bumps that we've seen. Essentially underperformed the last 2 years, has since fallen off since the 4th, which is pretty typical. So we get into those summer doldrums of freight right now, which if you've been in the industry for a while, you're all too familiar with. It remains to be seen if we're going to see like a back to school retail peak pull ahead due to some of the tariff rigmarole that's happening out there, but not a great couple of weeks for freight that we may have hoped for, unfortunately.
Yeah, kind of just more of the same from the last 3 years. Everyone waiting for something, some sign to indicate a turn. But I'm starting to wonder if there's something more structural going on, and we need to kind of rethink how we think about this industry altogether.
Yeah, I think that's probably right. I mean, we're starting to really examine, and a lot of really smart folks in the industry are starting to poke at, like, what if COVID broke the tradition? I think like the biggest misconception, first of all, this industry has a very short tenure and a high turnover, right? So a lot of folks have only ever experienced COVID. Most folks probably in the brokerage space have only experienced COVID.
Yep.
And then again, when you kind of zoom out even a little bit further, they've only experienced the ELD/Trump 1 tax cuts/tropical weather boom bust cycle. So the last two have been wild, but they've always went up and down since pretty much deregulation. The market's become overbought and oversold on a roughly 3 to 4 year period. So it is extremely strange, very, very, very strange that the market is stuck where it is, especially the contract market. I mean, when you talk to shippers, like none of them, typically longer tenured folks, have seen anything like what we're seeing right now. think it's like 19 straight months with contract rates moving less than a penny or two in either direction. That's just wild to think about.
We're stalled out.
Yeah, we still have, I don't know, 7,000 more carriers. No, 7% more carriers, which roughly equates to 15, 16,000 more than we would have had on the pre-COVID trend, which I think is also interesting and probably driving some of that. But it's crazy. I cannot recall ever seeing a period like this in the industry. ELP, that's a topic I think we wanted to chat a little bit about today. So if you're not familiar, there's kind of two ways to track violations, crashes, and roadsides, right? There's a more real-time data feed that comes off the DOT that's maybe a day or two behind. And then there's the SMS, which is when like your CSA score refreshes. That's like a once a month thing. The latter is a lot more comprehensive view. It's kind of the canonical view of how things go. So we won't have like final data on that until about the middle of this month for what happened in June. But some of the early data coming in, we can get a first glimpse of that first week of enforcement. And I mean, I think most folks who were looking at this rationally got it right that there were, I'd have to pull up the exact numbers, but basically for that entire week and a half, less than 400, 372 to be exact, out of service violations written for English language proficiency.
Do you have the winner of your contest?
I'm waiting. I am dedicated relentlessly to analytical prudence, so I'm not declaring a winner until the safer the SMS data is refreshed. That'll be like the true settled data, if you will. But it's looking like it's going to be in that 50 ballpark. Day one was about 50 out of service violations.
Wow. So yeah, really a lot more sizzle than steak here is the summary.
Yeah. I mean, you might have some casual viewers watching our show. There's probably about 4 million trucks on the road today, give or take. So not that many, not enough to budge rates, certainly. And I think I don't want to be all negative, right? I think it's worthwhile to applaud that 50 drivers who weren't able to read and write English were taken off the road. But when you kind of dig in, most of them had multiple other out of service violations that were far more nefarious and serious. So I think it all speaks to a broader problem that 1 in 4 pieces of equipment on the road today are unsafe at any speed, which is not good, I think, for any of us that traverse the highways.
Back to the issue of the leadership problems at the FMCSA.
Yeah, I mean, I think if 1 in 4 space launches ended in disaster, there'd be a little bit more of a public outcry. But most of us interact with the interstate system in a much more intimate way. So I'm a little curious why there's not more public push to get safety fixed. We're doing a lot in that regard, though, right? At least not fixing the safety, but bubbling up to our carriers, right? I was playing around with some of. It's funny, like you work here, you might not interact with our products as much as you did as a customer, which I think is interesting. So I was taking a dive into some of the things we've done around company profile and carrier search and looking at some of these carriers that were put out of service. And the data in there is truly fascinating. Not to be like a sales push for that, but it's pretty cool what you can go in and examine through our new tools to see how carriers are behaving and what's happening kind of in their operations.
Yeah, everything I think at DAT is going to be centered on that carrier profile. Once we get Carrier Management Suite out there, it's going to kind of become the new centerpiece of the business in a lot of ways.
Yeah, you can see where these trucks are getting inspected, what kind of violations they're getting, if they're getting any, when those violations were happening, kind of the severity of them. One of the things the DOT does really, really well is they make a ton of data available to us as consumers. I mean, you can kind of get lost in all of the data they provide around carrier performance. So it's really cool to see. And there's other examples out there too. I know there's some open source ones that are being vibe coded right now that are really, really cool that you can go check out.
Yeah. Well, while we wait for our special guest to be admitted, should we talk about some of the stuff that DAT is delivering, Ken?
I could not want to talk about anything else more than that.
Agreed. What's your favorite thing that's come out over the last couple of weeks?
It's maybe an understated feature, but we've changed or added some of the ways that you can customize what you see in DAT1 from like a columns and rows and order perspective. And I just know that like I'm really picky about that in my own day-to-day, like with my own apps. So I think that's something that might be a little bit unheralded, but I think that's a creature comfort that a lot of power users would appreciate personally.
Yeah. Customized columns. That's awesome. I'm most excited about the Trucker Tools integration to Keypoint, which replaces the previous DAT on-time tracking functionality and prior other integrations. This was something I was really excited about at the acquisition. Keypoint's got several hundred customers using it day in and day out to move all of their freight. There's tons and tons of loads flowing through there. And now by integrating Trucker Tools in there, it's really a seamless two-way integration where our customers are able to build and book a load and then send it for tracking automatically to a carrier, receive all of that data right back in there, pass it on to shippers. So super straightforward and simple, and just excited to kind of bring that vision of, we were acquired by DAT. We're now working together to really build an awesome end-to-end platform for our users.
Yeah, that's awesome. Again, I think a lot of it comes with, like, we've been working on these migrations and modernizing our systems for so long. Like, once you start getting into the cool usability features and the way that you can do shortcuts and make things just generally easier to use, that is, I think, where you can unlock some true potential. Some of the ways that people used DAT Power back in the day, if you can remember, like, they had that thing mastered. I could think back to FedEx, right? The old AS400 system that we had, like, watching some of those people desk side, they had keyboard shortcuts for everything. It was just absolutely crazy. And then when they went to McLeod, it took a while to learn how everything changed, but then they ultimately became just as proficient. So yeah, that's cool. What is this about ETAs? I've missed this one. ETAs with Trucker Tools?
Yeah, so Trucker Tools, one of the main things we've been focused on over the last couple of years is moving from this kind of reactive, let's just make sure, let's go see where the truck is when we need to, and when we get a question and from a shipper and we have to go check it out and see what's going on, there might be an exception, to becoming really a proactive platform where we're servicing and identifying what's happening in real time, so that you're only getting called to attention to the loads and the trucks that have something that might require manual intervention. So we're constantly releasing new features, and one of them that just is rolling out now is our ETA adjustment capability. So when ETAs, we set an ETA at the beginning of a trip based on what we understand about the load and the route and where the carrier is going. And as we update based on real-time conditions, where the carrier is versus where we thought we were going to do, or where we thought they were going to be, we will update that ETA and send a notification to you so that you can then pass it on to your shipper and get ahead of any sort of potentially angry customer.
Yeah, but this is part of kind of like a broad domain of work in the industry, which a lot of folks refer to like as accurate ETA, right? Which is a more like, how does 95% of the industry calculate ETA? They divide the miles by 45 for a drive in, right? And I think, like, as companies like Trucker Tools push towards more accurate ETAs based on actual driven routes and behavioral patterns and traffic, getting that more accurate ETA, because in a world with ELDs, you can't, you're pretty, especially as a single, you're pretty much limited, and there can be a stair step function in that ETA if you get hung up in traffic or you encounter a breakdown or something like that. So I think that's really impactful.
Exactly. We got some new metrics in DAT IQ. I saw you also tweeting out about some gross margin. What's going on there?
I think it's probably the coolest thing we've done since we released Benchmark IQ a year or so ago, which is shipper spot. So what does this mean? This actually shows you the sell side if you're a broker. So brokers buy and sell. They buy trucks, they sell to shippers. This is the first time we've productized the view for brokers that show them the average sell side. So what on average shippers are paying brokers on the spot market. It's really, really cool. Why is it cool? You can impute gross margin. Contrary to what the alt freight community thinks, is not 65% for freight brokers. It's closer to 13% right now is where it's hovering. But that varies tremendously on lanes. Backhaul lanes are different than head haul lanes. It varies by length of haul. So you can really start to dial things in by understanding what your sell side may be. It's really, really cool. It's actually in the app now. I've had access to it as long as I've worked here because I'm special and important. But now that we have it productized, it's really, really cool that everyone can use it.
Heck yeah. One other exciting thing, I'm actually, those very dedicated viewers might realize that I'm not at my usual desk. I am actually out in Seattle at the Outgo office. So Outgo, awesome tech forward factoring company, DAT acquired about 6 weeks ago now, out here meeting with the team and spending some time together. We're going to really get some deep integration between Trucker Tools and Outgo going over the next couple of weeks, where we're going to be offering our best-in-class factoring services, partial factoring, tech forward, also app first, just like Trucker Tools, to the entire network. So lots to come there, but just wanted to give everyone a heads up that I'm out here for the week.
Yeah, first of all, thank you to all of our existing and now new customers to the DAT family through Outgo. It's been a tremendous outpouring of support, tremendous outpouring of demand, probably like a crushing amount of demand, I would say, the last 6 weeks since we announced. But I also think like a really amazing testament to the product that the Outgo team has built, and kind of the synergy with a distribution network like DAT's. And it's really just the beginning. When you kind of dive into what those folks have on their roadmap, I'm not going to spoil anything. We should probably have Marcus back on, or maybe Ray. Some of the things they have on their roadmap around how to make a carrier's life easier and put them in control, even more control of their own money, is truly game changing, I think. I've learned a lot about payments. I don't know about you, Kary.
Yeah. I mean, it's crazy, crazy awesome space with just so much data that we can feed back into. We were talking about carrier profiles, making sure that we've got a really trusted, embedded carrier network. There's just amazing flywheel effects of having a payments platform as part of DAT.
Yeah, and again, we've just loaded up the data right into our data warehouse instance, and just looking at the factored receivable data, it's a rich data set that I think we can use to fortify our IQ products. So
yeah,
cool. Well, we have success behind the scenes, it looks like. I think we're going to bring Dan on. Hey, Dan. Maybe.
Oh no, we can see him.
All right. I was looking forward to this conversation. I think we might just make a call to push this to our next episode, because I think we're having some technical difficulties, and we're really excited to have a longer form conversation with Dan.
Okay.
All right. I lied. We're going to try it. Tech companies.
Can you hear me now?
Tech companies unite. We can hear you.
We're doing it live.
Okay. We're good to go.
Wow.
All right.
Yeah. So let's talk tech. Let's talk about trying to get your integrated camera onto a Zoom call, right? I feel like that may have become the topic now. We're here.
I still think the most common phrase in corporate America is "you're on mute."
Yes, without a doubt.
So,
yeah. Well, welcome.
Thanks for having me on. Appreciate it.
Yeah, I can just give a little bit, because Dan, I pinged you earlier this week to say, hey, you want to jump on? So for those of you who don't know Dan, you will soon, and want to give him a chance to introduce himself. But Dan's the founder and CEO of Ally Logistics, which is, from my perspective, as someone who works with hundreds and thousands of brokerages, one of the most tech forward kind of next gen brokerages out there. Whenever I have a question about what do I think is happening in this space, what's this part of the tech stack going to evolve into, Dan is always one of my first pings, and he's been an awesome thought partner and customer of ours. So wanted to bring him on and just kind of pick his brain and have a conversation about where this industry is going and what he thinks the future of tech and brokerage looks like.
Awesome. Yeah, appreciate that intro. I guess reiterate what you just said. Founder and CEO of Ally Logistics, started the company about 13 years ago. Proud to be a bootstrapped organization, kind of had very grassroots beginnings, learning the industry all the way from track and trace up to now the executive level. So I guess the way I describe myself, I'm a passionate, creative entrepreneur who just happens to be stuck in the middle of freight brokerage. I'm endlessly curious. And so I always think back to all those tasks that you used to bog me down, and just we're really obsessive about how can we make that journey easier, and how can we just essentially be a part of the evolution that's happening in the industry.
That's awesome. I guess one of the questions I have for you, Dan, is we always try to think about build, buy, partner when making these tech decisions. How has that sort of influenced your journey, and how do you continue to think about that in the age of AI tech proliferation?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. I'd say there's a lot to it. One of the first things we look at, especially with like potentially a bigger build out, is it has to be able to allow us to differentiate long term. I would say that like the case in point internally for us, we chose about 5 years ago to build a proprietary pricing engine. There's just so much nuance, as you know, Ken, to trying to get predictive with pricing. We do rely heavily on data from DAT. You guys have so much of it. But we just think that looking at that data in different ways, finding ways to be more predictive. Now we're really exploring how do we run that data through LLMs so that we can create kind of a recommendation engine of sorts to get that tech working for us. So the differentiation long-term is key. Will it drive revenue? That's something we're always looking at. Will it reduce labor expense? And then I think the other one is like, what's the cost of us not building it ourselves? That's one we think about a lot. And so there's either an opportunity cost that can exist if you have to work with like a suboptimal integration, or now with how interconnected all these different parts and pieces are becoming to process. Like I'm always thinking, what roadblock will be created in this other thing over here that we're trying to build if we don't have adequate control of this module or this component? So like one example would be we just built our own custom rate confirmation technology within Revenova, which is fantastic. We have the ability to do that. We're able to build the highway integration to exactly our specs, to cross-reference every contact before a rate sheet's sent out, and really create more of like a fail-safe, closed-loop, anti-fraud system there. So a lot to it, but I guess that's what kind of pops in mind there.
So it's interesting, Dan, to hear you talk about, you've got this kind of off the shelf, if you will, TMS, Revenova, which you guys have obviously done a lot of work to customize and build through. And that's kind of the end-to-end stack there. And as you're deciding, like Ken mentioned, whether to build, buy, or partner different parts of this, are you thinking about driving more efficiency and just making what are the metrics you're actually trying to solve for there? Or are you just trying to be a differentiated experience for your customer? Walk us through a little bit more about the kind of commercial focus of it.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely both of those things. I'll use one example. FleetWorks is a solution that we were an early customer of theirs. When we were analyzing that system, like one of the first things that come to mind when you have AI agents start to take some of your phone calls is, hey, you're going to be able to potentially reduce the labor that's associated with that. And actually, I think while that is true and that is a benefit, what's more interesting to me is the ability to drive data and actually capture unstructured data. And so that'd be an example where it's like, yes, there's opportunity to create some efficiency. But at the end of the day, I think the bigger opportunity might be how do you leverage that data to get smarter, make better decisions, push that into our pricing engine to help become more predictive, translating the phone data that everybody talks about, load blows up the phones. What does that mean? Trying to quantify that in a way that we can use in other places, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Dan, one of the things that we hear a lot is that a lot of tech implementation at brokerages goes unadopted. How do you sort of carrot versus stick, or a blend of both within your own brokerage, make sure that folks on the front lines are adopting the tech that you've either developed or paid to bring in-house?
Yeah, we're not exempt from those challenges. Adoption can definitely be a challenge, and I think like the bigger the change, the harder that adoption can be. A couple of the things that we think about, I think now that we have the luxury of having an on-site tech team, it's how do we really create like a DIY experience where that tool is going to be put right in the right place, where and potentially steering that path into it, like the rate confirmations change. Right now we have redundant rate confirmation methodologies. We're giving key users access to try it out. Fortunately, in that instance, it's working really well, and it's saving them time. And then over the course of the next month or two, we're going to phase out the old method once everybody's had exposure, once we've had enough time to get those feedback loops established to say, okay, what little bugs might exist there? What enhancements can we make so that you guys love the tech? And so I guess like a key theme within that is just like really constant communication with seat level stakeholders to really see not only how can the company achieve our security goals in terms of trying to mitigate fraud, but how do we do it in a way that actually enhances the experience and saves clicks and saves time? Because that's when you get a rave success. And I think generally when we've had the failures, it's a matter of the people on the floor were not brought into the experiment early enough, and they weren't allowed to help shape it and ask enough questions. Or in some cases, not every solution is a fit. Not every decision is the right one. So yeah, fortunately, I think the more we've built out our team with some super users across departments, we've got some really talented people on our tech team that have really done a good job of like kind of making that culture shift. Feels like we're getting a lot better at that process, and adoption rates keep going up.
It's so cool to hear you talk about this, because at DAT internally, we've been doing a ton of work to think about how we bring our customers into the product development process and making sure that we're totally customer obsessed and really starting everything with customer problems and building to solutions. And you're doing the exact same thing for your internal customers, those seat level users. So I'm curious, what do you see as, you guys have obviously implemented a ton over the last couple of years. What's the most outdated or broken problem that your reps on the floor are talking about right now? And what's next?
I think several things come to mind. One in particular, we're just looking to drive more cohesion with our carrier sales process. That right now is a bit fragmented, where we have some of that living in Revenova. We have some of that living in Parade. How do we really make that self-guided, simplify that process so that training, we always say, like, we need to design every process. We have really smart people here, but we need to design every process so that a third grader could get in the system and figure out what they're supposed to do here. So that's definitely one that comes to mind. Sorry, kind of lost your. I did this on the freight pod too, but lost the tail end of the question there. But
no, I was just wondering kind of what the next big problems that you guys are going after and thinking through. Or what are the things? What are the numbers you really want to move and you want to see? If we're talking in a year from now, you've made massive progress on this metric.
I mean, we're looking at loads per head per day. That's a big one, but I think that's also one that you can go too far with as well. Feels like this market might be getting a little bit more balanced. Could just be typical 4th of July seasonality, but we're really trying to be prepared for an environment where trucks might be a little bit harder to find. How do we gain that efficiency? But just as much shift the resources over so that they can be calling their relationship carriers before the other broker, as much as just trying to realize cost savings there. So that'd be another one that comes to mind.
Awesome.
So I guess you missed the front part of this conversation, but we talked a little bit about the lackluster 4th of July and kind of the current malaise of the market. Is that kind of what you're seeing out there, that things just appear to be stuck, or are you seeing something a little bit different than the supposed experts?
Yeah, I feel like it's just hard to peg what's going on right now. I feel like there's some regional specific things that are there's some areas that we're seeing some compressed margins. We're definitely not seeing a huge spike in volume, but there's a lot of talk right now about the English language proficiency, how that might be impacting the long tail of capacity. I feel like that might be what, in some instances, we're finding. There's different lanes that might be more dependent on that capacity type. How's that impacting things? So it has been really tough to know kind of where things are headed. Now you got the big, beautiful bill that came out. How's that going to impact sentiment? We're still in the middle of the tariff stuff. So, gave up on trying to use the crystal ball too much. We're just putting one foot in front of the next, and we're just going to continue to hone in, improve process, and serve our customers to the best of our abilities.
It's kind of, I'm gaining an appreciation. I made the horrible mistake to get involved on Twitter a year and a half ago. And what's more pronounced there is there's a lot of sell-side analysts who kind of cruise around there and follow certain accounts and use that in their writing. And I think like it's been interesting to see like ELP and the tariffs and the amount of inbound that I've received. Even this morning, I was helping someone at one of the major analytics firms combine a couple DOT tables to get a view of like roadside violations. So everyone seems to be searching for some sort of answer. And I think in reality, it's just we have just as many carriers as we need for the loads that we have. That's the simplest explanation, I would say.
Yeah, and maybe there's some shifting happening within that, but yeah, you're definitely one that I'm following on X and getting some of my information from as well. So
my condolences.
Yeah, no,
Appreciate
that.
It's worth the price of the follow. I'll tell you that.
There's never a dull moment. So
there is never a dull moment.
Dan, no, you got one. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Ken.
No, please.
I was going to say, we actually got an inbound question from one of our audience members. Thanks, Steve from Turbo Logistics writing in. He's got questions about double brokers. How do you handle that? What's working for Ally, and what do you recommend to him?
Yeah, I don't think there's a simple answer for that, but very multifaceted. I'd say that ties to some of our automation efforts. One automation, we actually just rolled this out either yesterday or 2 days ago. An identity check button right within our system that goes automatically verifies the carrier is registered kind of before you would book a carrier. Makes that really seamless. I think the more of these little micro processes we can automate, the tighter we can make our compliance standards, because you have an efficient kind of way to get through some of those hurdles. Highway's been big for us in terms of locking that down with the VIN verification, ELD verification, and just being able to integrate with that. FleetWorks, we're filtering out calls from fraudulent numbers through that system. We also have Highway's VoIP service that's doing some of the same. I know you guys are putting in some effort as well to crack down on your side. So there's a lot to it. I think it's really just how do we create process that lets us get as tight as possible without compliance, without costing ourselves the capacity we know we need.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much for joining. We apologize for the technical difficulties. We'll have to do it again sometime with a little bit more seamless connectivity and talk maybe about closer to peak. Be interesting to get your take as we get closer to retail peak to see what's happening and how some of the things you talked about on your tech rollout are going.
Yeah, that sounds great. Hey guys, appreciate you having me, and yeah, look forward to coming back sometime.
Thank you, Dan.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Well, Kary and I are going to wrap a few things up here. I think we forgot a couple things and bring things to a close. So we are at Iowa 80, the Jamboree, if I'm not mistaken, right now.
Right now.
Correct? So if you're in Iowa, it's the second Iowa reference for the show, if you're keeping track, today. Stop by and see us. I could not possibly recommend the fried pork tenderloin sandwich. People at DAT are sick of hearing me talk about it. It's the size of your face. It is delicious. I recommend it to anyone. And then last, but certainly not least, I should have mentioned this at the top of the show. Gotten a lot of inbound. People must have really got the message on our partnership with Parade. We really deepened our partnership with Parade. We announced it yesterday. Anthony posted about it. I believe DAT is going to be coming out with some more information. Just new ways to interact, bringing their AI agents closer to where our customers are in our network. We've been partners for, I think, over 5 years with Parade. So it's a really exciting time in that partnership to expand and grow and make carriers' lives and brokers' lives a lot easier.
Heck yeah.
Anything to add there, Kary?
We're very excited about it. Just going to give additional digital booking functionality to Parade users. So definitely reach out to your rep if you're interested to learn more.
Awesome. All right. I'm going to wrap us up this morning. We ran a little long. I want to thank everyone for bearing with us. It was a great turnout this morning. If you have any questions for us, feel free to drop them on any of the social media platforms. We will be back in 2 weeks. I also forgot to remind everyone, college football starts next month. So I will become even more insufferable for the tail half of this year than I am already, Kary. I apologize.
We might be ending the podcast. This might be a first half of the year only sort of thing.
It's the most magical time of the year. August 30th, I believe, kicks off the college football season this year.
Actually, week 0 is August 23rd.
Oh, is that the Ireland game? Are they doing that again this year?
Yep.
Oh, that'll be cool. That'll be really, really cool. I'm still debating if I'm going to go to the Ohio State-Texas game. It's going to be hot. It's at noon. I could probably sell my tickets for a lot of money.
Is that
walk
week
to my
1?
house. Yeah, that's week 1, August 30th.
In Texas or at the Horseshoe?
It's at the Horseshoe, yeah.
Definitely go to that.
Yeah, I don't know. We'll see. All right, we've droned on long enough. Have a great week, everyone. Be safe out there. We'll talk to you in a couple weeks. Thanks for joining.
Thank you.